investigations from the case files of Lieutenant Joe Kenda. First, a teenager suddenly vanishes.
CJ? CJ?
Does a mysterious phone call hold the key to solving her disappearance?
About 16 years old, dark brown hair.
This person claimed to be her brother, but she doesn't have a brother.
Then,
don't walk away from me.
Two neighbors step into a messy dispute.
Do you realize there's a bunch of dog poop all over your yard?
That spirals into an all-out war.
Son of a...
He says, I had to do it. I was afraid he was going to kill me.
I'm coming in!
Is this a young mother protecting her child or an irate neighbor responding out of revenge? I don't understand humans, but they interest me. Human behavior is very difficult to predict. I gave up doing that a very long time ago.
It's a school day, but Diana Hudson's 15-year-old daughter, CJ, is sick at home.
CJ, I'm home. I have your medicine. I'll bring it to you.
Diane Hudson went to the pharmacy to give her daughter the medication that she needed because CJ was suffering from strep throat.
CJ? CJ, honey. CJ? CJ? CJ!
When she goes back to her daughter's bedroom, she's not there.
Honey, where are you?
Meanwhile, Lieutenant Joe Kenda is doing his best to see his way through another hectic workday.
Did he give you a report number? The officer came by.
Should have been on.
34 call for Kenda.
The officer gave it. Call for Kenda.
Do you have a date?
I ran that plate.
My office is often described as the Tower of Babel. The phones are ringing, the police radios are going off.
10-4. Did you check with the neighbors?
I'm having 6 different conversations with people in front of me and another conversation on the phone.
Copy that, Kenda. Okay. Yes, Detective Ritz.
I just got off the phone with a woman who thinks her 15-year-old daughter's been kidnapped. Seems pretty upset. Says the daughter's really sick, wouldn't have left the house on her own, that kind of thing.
All right, let's check it out. If anything else that allows me to get away from this mountain of paperwork. Thank you.
Thanks.
Even though it's not a homicide, the nature of the call requires Kenda's Major Crimes Unit to investigate.
This case is significant because Diana Hudson tells Ritz that she is convinced her daughter has been forcibly removed from her home. We are involved in all serious criminal activity, and kidnapping eminently qualifies.
Thank you for coming. I just had this feeling in my gut that something is really wrong.
Detective Ritz mentioned that your daughter's ill.
Yes, CJ. Her name's Claudia Jane, and she just goes by CJ.
CJ Bates was your typical 15-year-old. She had lots of friends. She participated in school activities. She went to football games.
She wasn't feeling well, so we went to the doctor, and they gave her a prescription for strep throat.
Diana explains she took her home and then got the prescription filled. When she gets home, that's when she finds she's missing.
When I couldn't find her, I went to go use the phone, and that's when I heard that weird answering machine message.
Hello, Mrs. Bates. This is Principal McLean from CJ School. We received a phone call this morning that I thought you should know about.
She was informed that someone had called the school saying that they were going to come by and pick up CJ because of a family emergency.
Well, right away, if you hear that and you knew there was no family emergency, you'd be racking your brain thinking, who would have made this call?
So, at your earliest convenience, please give me a call back here at the school, and we will talk to you soon. Thank you.
Do you have any idea who made that call?
No, that's what worries me.
Kenda thinks the caller must be the one who took CJ from her home. However, a crucial question remains. Did he kidnap her? Or was he helping her run away?
We're going to talk to the principal about all this. First, I need to ask you a few questions about CJ. Is that okay?
Okay.
How was your relationship with CJ? Does she have any problems with the family?
No, everything's fine.
Did CJ have a boyfriend or anything like that?
No, she has some guy friends, but nothing serious or anything.
She tells us she doesn't have a boyfriend that I know of, but she goes to school. She does well in school.
Honestly, she's just a good girl. I know she didn't run away. I know it.
What concerns me that this might be for real. This kid is sick. Strep throat is a serious illness. She's not going to be in any condition to willfully want to run away. She wants to go to bed.
Well, we take these things very seriously. So if you hear anything or think of anything at all, make sure you give us a call.
Thank you.
And we'll let ourselves out.
Thank you.
At this particular point, we have smoke, but no visible flame. I need to see flame.
Principal McLean?
Yes.
We were told you'd be here. We're from the CSPD.
Okay, I can help you.
So we talked to the principal about this mysterious phone call where someone is claiming to be a family member.
The caller sounded young, a teenager, and there was noise in the background as if he were on a payphone. It wasn't too long after I left a message for CJ's mom that he showed up here.
He showed up here at the school?
Oh, yeah. But I didn't let him linger too long.
This is getting curiouser by the moment.
Hey man, where's CJ at? Told y'all to have her out here.
CJ's not here. Who exactly are you anyway?
The principal says it's a 16-year-old boy with brown hair and rather slender who claims to be CJ's brother.
If that were the case, then you know that CJ's homesick today. And why don't you beat it before I call the police?
Had you ever seen him before? Does he go to school here?
Well, I know I've never seen him before, so there's no way he goes here.
And you don't know if CJ knows him?
I don't. But I do know someone that might.
The principal says that CJ is very good friends with a Kathy Wyatt, who is a student there, and directs us to speak with her.
I can get her information for you if you'd like.
That'd be great.
Yeah, right this way.
With school out for the day, Kenda and Ritz make a beeline for Kathy's home.
Kathy? Come on in, please. These men are with the police department. They'd like to ask you a few questions.
We'd like to talk to you about your friend CJ.
CJ, is she all right?
Oh, we hope so.
We tell her that CJ has apparently disappeared. We're concerned that perhaps she's been taken away by force.
Oh my God, I knew she wasn't at school today, but I thought that was because she was sick.
What can you tell me about her?
Kathy White explains that she and CJ are best friends. They spend a lot of time together on weekends, and they see each other every day at school.
Do you know if CJ was seeing anybody?
You mean like a boyfriend?
Yeah.
Well, not really. But there was this one guy, Paul Norris, that she's been talking to since the beginning of the school year.
But then Kathy tells police that Paul seemed to be more interested in CJ than CJ was interested in Paul.
So this Paul guy, do you know how old he is? What does he look like?
I think he's 16, skinny guy with short brown hair.
This really piques our interest. The principal described roughly the same individual.
And they spend a lot of time together?
Some. I know CJ told me that Paul was wanting to take her on a road trip to Florida or something like that, where his grandparents lived.
Back at headquarters, Kenda and Ritz prepare to visit the home of Paul Norris.
Hey, I got an address on Paul. Do you want to go check it out?
Sure, maybe get lucky and both kids will be there.
Hey, Lieutenant. A Kansas State trooper on the line. You might want to take it.
Why's that?
I think it involves that girl you're looking for.
What line?
Line 2.
Lieutenant Kenda, how can I help you?
Hey, Lieutenant Kenda. This is Sergeant Poland from the Kansas State Police.
The Kansas trooper explains he's in a hospital in Waukene, Kansas, and he has a deceased child on his hands whose name is Claudia Jane Bates. Has my case just gone from a missing person to a homicide? We're investigating the disappearance of the 15-year-old female, and then we get a phone call that CJ Bates is dead in Waukene, Kansas.
Hey, Lieutenant Kenda. This is Sergeant Poland from the Kansas State Police. We have a deceased woman here from Colorado Springs.
Can you tell me what happened?
It's a pretty horrific accident. She was in a pickup truck with two other individuals, one Donald Martin and Paul Norris. They both survived. They're currently at the hospital.
We know who was driving?
At this point, we don't. All three occupants were ejected from the truck.
Trooper Poland tells Kenda that when he arrived on scene, he found the truck upended on the side of the road.
Damn.
Yeah, brother, it's pretty bad. Poor girl, she got the worst of it.
This is one vehicle involved. No other vehicles were involved.
It appeared the accident began 50 feet away when, for some unknown reason, the pickup veered off the highway and hit a mile marker.
The vehicle then swerved to the left. It's often referred to as overcorrection by the driver. Panic: when you hit something, you jerk the wheel to the left. The truck careened across the two lanes. He says the truck rolled at least 3 times. This causes the doors to open and passengers become thrown from the car.
We're not sure if the accident was mechanical or driver error. We're looking into that right now, but I did find something interesting.
And the prescription medication is for muscle relaxants. That's often prescribed for people with back pain. But are they prescriptions for an occupant of this vehicle? Muscle relaxants don't have anything to do with strep. So I doubt they belong to Miss Bates.
Listen, I'm investigating a possible runaway situation here that involves several of the players of your accident.
We explained to him that Paul Norris and his deceased girl had some kind of relationship.
I know you're going to be speaking to the survivors for your own purposes. If you give me a call back and let me know what they say, it could possibly help us out here with our investigation.
Okay, I'll call you back later and tell you what I found out.
I appreciate it. Thank you. Bye.
The burning question is, did she go with him willingly or not?
Hey, Mr. Norris. I'm glad you're okay. I heard you've been informed on what happened to Miss Bates.
Yeah.
What exactly happened out there?
Norris tells him that this was a planned trip to Florida, that he, CJ Bates, and Mr. Martin were going to Florida to see someone.
Got some relatives down there, so we figured it'd be fun to hang out, go to the beach and stuff.
Did your parents know?
No.
So CJ ran off with you willingly, you didn't force her or anything?
Of course she wanted to go. She's my girlfriend.
Okay.
Norris vehemently denies that, saying that CJ Bates willingly came with him.
What about the accident? Was anybody doing drugs or?
No, nothing like that. I think I fell asleep behind the wheel. Been driving all day. Next thing I remember, we hit a sign or something. After that, it's a blur.
Next, Trooper Poland speaks with the other occupant of the truck, Donald Martin, and hears a similar story.
So this was a trip that you guys had planned?
Yes, sir. We all just got in the truck and we were planning to go to Florida.
Do you know about what time the accident was?
So it was probably around 9-ish.
9 o'clock?
Yes, sir.
Was anybody drinking in the car or anything?
No, sir. Yes, sir.
This is Kenda.
Olin calls back to report that Mr. Martin says that CJ willingly went with, just like Mr. Norris says.
We don't have any reason to hold him right now, so.
I think they'll be out of the hospital before long, and we're going to release them to their parents at that time.
Our investigation will continue, but we're kind of leaning back towards the fact that maybe this was just a planned runaway situation.
Something just doesn't feel right.
How so?
I mean, they claim they weren't doing drugs. But what about those pills in the glove compartment?
Yeah, we really need to talk to them about that when they get back.
Lieutenant, CJ Bates' mother's here to see you. She's waiting in your office.
I'll be right there.
I'll let her know.
You gonna break the news?
Afraid so.
You're about to tell a mother the news that no mother ever wants to hear, that her worst fear is realized. And they know by the look on your face that this is going to be bad news.
I'm sorry to have to inform you that CJ is no longer alive.
I then wait for the grief reaction and deal with that for however long that takes.
No, it can't be.
As a parent, you are dealing with the fact that you think they were kidnapped, and that in itself is a horrible thing, but then here they were killed in a car accident.
What happened?
We inform her of the traffic accident in Kansas, that we don't know for certain how these two boys came to be with her daughter.
Both the boys survived, and I had a trooper in Kansas speak with them.
Who are the boys?
It's a Paul Norris and a Donald Martin. Are you familiar with either one?
Not the second one, but Paul, yeah.
She says she has never heard her daughter say that Paul Norris was her boyfriend, only that he was a friend.
Did they tell the state trooper why they kidnapped her?
Well, about that. They were on their way to Florida to hang out at the beach, but both Paul and Donald independently said that all three had planned it and that CJ wanted to go.
They're lying.
Ma'am, I assure you, we intend to question them and look into it.
Okay, look at her. This is her purse. This is her purse. This is her jacket. She would have never left home without this.
Mrs. Hudson says those are her favorite things. She would never go anywhere without them.
And I think as a parent, you know your child so well, and if you see things left behind that they always take with them, you would know that, hey, wait a minute, this isn't normal behavior.
I'm telling you, there's something wrong here.
My first thought was, you know, Mrs. Hudson, you have some points here. This is not willful. This is criminal. And somebody's going to pay a price for a dead 15-year-old girl. We no longer believe that CJ Bates, our victim, willfully went with Mr. Martin and Mr. Norris. I need to get to the bottom of this.
3 days after the tragic auto accident, Paul Norris and Donald Martin are released to their parents in Colorado Springs.
We make arrangements to interview Paul. But that interview does not go well.
Are you Paul?
Yeah.
My son doesn't have anything to say this time.
His father denied an interview and said that his son will exercise his right to remain silent.
You're gonna have to speak with our lawyer.
So Kenda sets his sights on the other occupant of the truck, Donald Martin.
Donald, get out here.
Being underage, when police go to interview Donald, his mother is there as well.
Mr. Martin has been injured in a motor vehicle accident. He's got a broken ankle. He's got bruises all over him. He looks awful.
I assume you know why we're here?
Yeah. That's what happened in Kansas and the girl CJ.
Right. I spoke with Trooper Poland and he told us your account of the events. Are you still sticking with that story? Because personally, we're not buying it.
Young man, tell them the truth.
Okay.
So what happened?
He tells us he had gone with Paul to pick up CJ at school and were turned away. So Paul then drove him over to CJ's house.
I'll be back in a minute. CJ!
Don sat in the truck. He thought he was just picking up CJ. But the next thing he knows is
I don't want to go with you, Paul, please.
Paul has brought CJ out of the house in a bear hug.
No, I don't want to go. Ow! Oh, wait. Ow.
She is kicking with her legs, and he shoves her into the truck with Donald Martin.
Paul, I don't want to go. Ow!
Dude, what are you doing?
This kid somehow incorrectly believes this girl's in love with him, which obviously she isn't.
What were you thinking while this happened?
I didn't know what to think. Paul didn't tell me anything. And CJ just kept fighting to get away.
Let me go. Let me go, please.
And then all of a sudden he just took off in the car. I mean, it was insane. They were just kept screaming at each other. I didn't know what to do.
Donald says that much to his relief, CJ eventually calmed down.
I swear, you're gonna have fun, CJ. When you get to my grandparents, you're gonna love it.
Because she's feeling so terrible, she pretty much just goes along with it.
Donald, the trooper said that they found some pills in the truck, some muscle relaxers. Who did those belong to?
We found them in the glove compartment. Paul didn't seem to know anything about them. I guess they just belonged to whoever he got the truck from.
Hey man, what are those?
Oh no, I just found them.
But not knowing what they were was no roadblock for Paul.
Dude. Crazy.
Donald advises that Paul took the pill not knowing what it was or what it could possibly do to him. He believes that the pill made him very tired.
Within 30 minutes of taking these pills, Paul falls asleep.
Kenda is convinced Donald is telling the truth, but he still needs hard proof to corroborate it and charge Paul.
You mentioned that CJ bit you at some point?
Oh yeah, and hard. I still have the marks to prove it. Paul has them too.
He shows us the bite mark, and it's visible, obviously a human bite mark. And he says that Paul has them as well. Even if you've invoked your right to remain silent, we can still obtain a non-testimonial court order for identification to recover photographs of any injuries we believe to be on your body.
Turn around. Face me.
We take Paul into a hospital, we have him stripped to the waist, and there are human bite marks on his shoulder, so this further supports Martin's story that what he's saying is true.
Lieutenant, I think we got what we need.
All right, thank you, gentlemen. We'll be in touch.
So we now have probable cause to believe this is a kidnapping, so we arrest him and put him in juvenile detention.
In May 1994, Paul Norris pleads guilty to criminally negligent homicide.
Paul is sentenced to 3 years as a result, which sounds a little weak, but that's what he gets.
What ultimately drove this case is the adolescent mind. There is no consideration of consequence. They live life in the moment. I have no control. My emotions are in command. which is what makes kids so dangerous.
Coming up, a neighborly dispute ends in the worst possible way.
These are neighbors getting into a heated argument that results in gunfire.
It's a quiet afternoon throughout Colorado Springs, with one exception.
Hello, ma'am.
I'm telling you, but there's somebody over here. I'm coming in.
Who is that in the background that I hear? What's going on, ma'am?
And right then, the dispatcher hears in the background.
Ma'am. Hello, ma'am. Are you there? Ma'am, are you okay? What's going on? What happened? Hello? Hello, are you there?
Oh, Lord! Oh, Lord!
Ma'am, is everyone okay?
A short time later, Lieutenant Kenda finds himself in a middle-class housing development on the east side.
This is a typical city neighborhood of single-family homes. Not the kind of neighborhood you anticipate the existence of violent crime.
Lieutenant.
How you doing? So what we got?
Well, we've got a 42-year-old male named Elvin Landrum. He was shot in the back, the neck, and the shoulder. He was taken to the hospital. He's in critical condition.
And he lives here?
No, sir.
Where's he live?
He lives over there.
I'm informed he resides 2 houses away from where he's found. The residence of the home where the shooting took place is 63-year-old Alice Couchon, her 21-year-old daughter, Gina, and also a child.
Both women were pretty upset, but we did manage to get some pertinent information from them.
Both Alice and Gina report that Landrum came to their house, confronted them, tried to break in. Gina's statement to one officer was, "I had to do it. He was going to kill us all."
We've taken her down to the station for further questioning.
Your first thought is, well, is this a self-defense case? That's where we need to start looking.
Let's take a look.
Why is he so angry? Why is he at their home?
And this is where we found the victim when we first arrived on scene.
We have to examine this scene to see what the evidence has to say about the nature of the dispute between Elvin Landrum and the Couchon family. There's a bloodstain in the front yard. It's 6 or 8 feet from the front porch. So the assumption is this confrontation likely took place at the front door. Is he trying to gain entry into this house?
Thank you.
Be careful where you walk up here.
Yeah, this is all just lovely.
Dog feces have been deposited, stepped on, and smeared on this porch area. And there's no explanation as to why they would be there in such concentration. Is that part of this? Well, maybe it is.
Well, that took quite a beating.
There's an aluminum storm door attached to the house, and the bottom portion of the door had lots of dents in it where it looked like somebody had been kicking it.
Given the circumstances, it's relatively clear that that somebody is none other than Elvin Landrum.
That's strange.
What's that?
The main door's intact. It must have been open when she shot him.
Is it possible that Elvin Landrum forced his way through the storm door, opens the unlocked front door, and is greeted by gunfire because Gina's waiting on the other side?
Come on, you think you're so damn smart? Damn it, come on, you're gonna beat your ass. Come on, I saw it was you. I know what you did. I'm gonna kick your mama's ass and I'm gonna kick your chest too.
Mama, are you okay?
Yeah, baby.
In order to gather more information, Kenda has officers canvass the neighborhood.
So you're not surprised this happened?
I knew there was friction between the two families, but I had no idea what would lead to poor Elvin being shot.
One of the officers comes forward with Gretchen Fitzgerald. She knows both families and has some knowledge of what's going on.
Gretchen says it all started with 2 boys and a football.
Come on, Weston.
sick of them boys playing out here.
According to neighbors, Elvin's kids were constantly playing in the street.
But then, the football hits Alice Couchon's car.
So sick of them boys with that foot. Don't you come in my yard. I told y'all about playing with that ball in my yard. Hit my car.
Please?
So sick of y'all.
We're just getting the ball.
I don't care. You ain't getting it back. Tell your dad to come get it.
Please?
Nope.
Miss Fitzgerald reports that Alice Couchon takes the football out of her yard, tells these kids she's not going to give it back, and they should get out of there and leave her alone.
A short time later, Ms. Fitzgerald sees Elvin Landrum confront Alice Couchon about the ball.
You have no right to take my son's property.
Look, now those children of yours need to learn a lesson. If you ain't gonna teach them no discipline, then I will.
Oh, no. I'm their father.
Listen.
No, I know you listen to me.
That ball is in the house and they're not getting it back.
You go get in that house and get that thing back right now.
I'm not getting nothing.
Listen, well, don't walk away from me.
And I could hear and see Elvin hollering. It was pretty intense.
I can't see a foam football as being a motive. There's got to be something we don't know yet about this confrontation between these two families.
Well, thank you, ma'am. You've been very helpful.
Hoping to discover additional information, Kenda returns to Alice and Gina's home.
Hey, Lieutenant.
Hey, so where's the gun at?
It's in this bedroom right above us right here.
Upstairs? That's weird.
So up the stairs we all go.
Is this exactly where you found it?
Yes, sir.
And laying on the ironing board is a pink plastic gripped revolver. So if she shot him while he's entering the foyer, why is the gun up here? As I'm scanning this room, I notice that the window is pushed all the way up and it's open. Not a big deal, but I notice the window screen is pushed out and away from the house. That's very unusual.
Well, that certainly is interesting.
What's that?
Bullet holes.
Now we know why the gun is up here, because it was used from up here, not from downstairs. We've now determined that Gina Couchon shot her neighbor, Elvin Landrum, from the second floor bedroom window. How could this be self-defense if you're shooting at someone when you're on the second floor?
And that's not the only question on investigators' minds.
Now, at this point in the investigation, you have to figure out, well, why was Elvin Landrum even there that night?
Kenda arrives at Memorial Hospital to speak with Elvin Landrum about what happened.
Excuse me, doctor. I'm here to talk to Elvin Landrum.
I'm sorry, Lieutenant, but Mr. Landrum is not going to be able to help you.
Why is that?
I'm informed that Mr. Landrum is in grave condition, unconscious, unable to respond. Doctors are very concerned about his survival.
Thank you.
Sure.
So Kenda turns to Elvin's wife, Diane, for answers.
Mrs. Landrum, I'm Lieutenant Kenda with the CSPD. I'm very sorry what happened to your husband. Do you mind if I talk to you for a minute?
Yeah.
Can you tell me a little bit about Elvin?
We've been together about 6 years. He's such a wonderful man. He's a great dad, good husband.
Elvin's wife tells him he was a loving father, a good husband. He had worked at Fort Carson. He had never had any problems with anybody before.
Can you tell me what happened with the neighbors? Why he might have been shot?
I'm not exactly sure.
Owen and I were both in the house together when the doorbell rang, and our neighbor, Nick, was outside when I opened the door. Hey, Nick.
Hey, Diane, how's it going today?
Good, what's up?
Hey, I was out walking my dog, and somebody's thrown dog poop and garbage all in your front yard.
So I now know something I didn't know before, that the Kushan porch had dog feces covering it. And it's also covering Elvin Landrum's front yard. And that's not a coincidence.
Hey, what's going on? Hey, Elvin, somebody really trashed your front yard.
Son of a bitch!
But why would Elvin rush over to Alice and Gina's house?
I don't know. It doesn't make any sense.
You're thinking, what would make him think that they were responsible for this? The Kushans didn't even own a dog.
I'll let you know if we find out anything. Thank you.
Kenda knows he needs to speak with the one person that can explain all of this, the shooter herself, Gina Kushan.
Am I in trouble for this? I'm so sorry. It was self-defense.
Did you take a deep breath and walk me through what happened?
It all started yesterday when my mother took this football from Elvin's kids after it hit her car.
Gina says what we already know, that her mother became angry about that, came outside, picked the ball up, and she refused to give it to them.
She was gonna give the ball back, but just wanted to teach them a lesson, you know? And then Elvin showed up, and I guess they kind of got into it.
Elvin must have been fuming, because later he collected dog feces from his yard and dumped it on her property.
Then later on that day, I came out to take the trash out, and I smelled something awful. And I looked down and I saw a bunch of dog crap just scattered all over the porch.
She knew right then that because of the troubles that had been going on between Elvin and her mother, that Elvin probably put this species on her front porch.
And I was so pissed off when I realized he did that. I thought, okay, buddy, two could play this game.
So she grabbed the shovel and shoveled that dog feces up. And took it over to Elvin's house and scattered it around his front yard. He also opened out a bag of garbage and tore it open and also spread that around his front yard. And she then got a dirty diaper that had been used for her son and emptied that into Elvin's front yard.
Yeah, I know. It was stupid. And obviously, I regret it now. But as far as I was concerned, it was over. Then Elvin came back to the house.
Come on out here!
Gina!
You're so damn smart! Come on out here!
Elvin, get off my porch!
I'm gonna come up there and kick your ass, Gina.
She goes to the window and sees Elvin Landrum in a wild rage, kicking on the door, yelling,
I'm coming in!
Elvin, get off my property! Stop banging my door!
I'm coming up here right now.
and his attacks on the door increased.
Don't you kick my door! Gina! Mom, are you okay?
Gina says she's pretty scared at this point, so she grabbed her gun, thinking that she may have to use this in self-defense.
Mom, call 911.
Come on down here. I'm gonna kick your ass, and then I'm gonna kick your mother's ass too.
She says her mother got on the phone to call 911.
I'm telling you, better get somebody over here. He gonna break in, he gonna kill us.
Get down. You hear me?
She didn't feel that she could wait, so she decided at that point that she needed to stop the threat.
Come on out here.
I was terrified. I was thinking about my mother and my baby.
She pushes open that window screen, levels that gun, and starts pulling the trigger.
I'm gonna kick your...
Oh, Lord!
Hello, ma'am, are you there? Ma'am, are you okay?
If he would have got in the house, it could have been us. It could have been us.
Gina is trying to protect her child and her elderly mother. When someone's banging on your door, you're just thinking, I have to make sure that I keep myself and my family safe.
9 days after he was shot, Elvin Landrum succumbs to his injuries. With his death, Gina is charged with murder, and the case goes to trial.
Ultimately, the jury concluded that this was, in fact, a self-defense case, and they found Gina Kushan not guilty of second-degree murder.
There's an old expression that good fences make good neighbors. That's really not true. Proper behavior makes good neighbors. Think for a moment before you act. It would be in your interest as well as everyone else's.
It started with a knock at midnight, sudden, unexpected, rattling the old wooden door of a house that had long forgotten the warmth of life. A light flickered in the hall, shadows crawling across the walls like they had secrets of their own. Inside, the house smelled of dust, of memories trapped in the corners untouched for years. Nobody expected what came next. A phone call shattered the silence, a voice low, trembling, almost apologetic, and yet carrying a weight that no one could ignore. I think I know what happened to her, it said. And just like that, the past clawed its way back into the present. It was 1995, the heart of Texas, summer heat thick and suffocating, when 18-year-old Emily Carter disappeared without a trace. A small town, sleepy, tight-knit, where everyone knew everyone. Or at least they thought they did. The streets were quiet, but beneath the surface, currents of secrets ran deep, invisible and deadly. Her bedroom remained untouched for weeks, the window open, curtains fluttering in the wind as if whispering her name. Her diary lay on the bedside table, pages filled with teenage dreams, sketches of places she longed to see, and fragments of fears she never voiced aloud. The last entry was abrupt, a single sentence. I'm scared, but I have to go. The night she vanished, neighbors reported a strange glow coming from the abandoned lot near the edge of town. Some said it was a fire. Others swore they saw figures moving, shadows merging with the darkness. Sheriff's deputies combed the area, flashlights cutting through the thick brush, radios crackling with static, but they found nothing. No sign of struggle, no footprints, only the oppressive silence of a town holding its breath. Emily was gone, vanished, and the only clue was the echo of her laughter fading into the night. Investigators followed the threads they could find. There was Tom Reynolds, her boyfriend at the time, quiet, reserved, a high school dropout who worked at the gas station. He said he last saw her walking home from a friend's house, waving, smiling, unaware that someone or something was watching. His eyes were haunted, but the investigators found nothing concrete to pin on him. Then there was Carla Jennings, Emily's best friend, who reported seeing a suspicious car parked by the lot a few nights earlier. A black sedan, windows tinted, engine rumbling softly. She couldn't identify the driver. Her description was vague, but it lingered in the minds of detectives as an omen of hidden danger. Days turned into weeks, weeks into months, and the case went cold. Leads dried up. Witnesses moved, memories faded, and the town buried the girl in their collective consciousness, a haunting they preferred not to name. Law enforcement left behind a trail of paperwork, photos, and frustration. Emily's family lived in limbo, sleepless nights stretching into years, anniversaries of her disappearance marked by unanswered questions and silent dinners. Every rumor, every passing glance at a stranger became a potential clue, A potential lie, a potential heartbreak. Decades later, the phone call that reopened the case sparked a wildfire. Detective Marcus Hayes, now retired but still meticulous, answered. His heart raced as the voice on the other end dropped names, dates, and details that had never been public. The speaker knew things no outsider could have known, details about the lot, the black sedan, even Emily's final diary entry. Hayes felt the old chill, the familiar hair-raising awareness that something monumental was about to shift. Evidence that had lain dormant, forgotten in filing cabinets and boxes in basements, suddenly gained relevance. Photos were dusted off, re-examined under magnification, scanned for details previously overlooked. A scratch on a fence post, a footprint partially obscured by overgrown grass, a small pendant glinting in the moonlight of the original photographs. Interviews were reopened. Conversations once thought routine now loaded with the gravity of impending revelation. Friends, former classmates, and neighbors were tracked down. Many had moved, their lives reshaped by time. Yet the shadows of 1995 clung to them. The interrogation room under harsh fluorescent lights became a theater of hidden guilt, hesitation, and fractured memories. Each question pressed on nerves that had long since learned to lie, to conceal, to forget. Every response carried the tremor of truth hiding in plain sight. Forensics had evolved, offering tools unthinkable in the mid-90s. DNA testing, digital reconstruction, even scent analysis became allies in the search for answers. A single hair found beneath Emily's bed, long dismissed, was now a potential key. Fibers from her clothing were examined under new microscopes, revealing traces of an unknown substance, something toxic or chemical, something that could have incapacitated her long enough to vanish without struggle. Each piece of evidence, once inert, now pulsed with possibility, as though the years of silence were merely a pause before a crescendo. The town, upon hearing that the cold case had been reopened, felt an old fear resurface. Windows were closed tighter, doors double-locked, whispers in grocery stores and gas stations reflected a collective unease. Some residents felt relief, hoped that closure might come. Others recoiled, fearing that the skeletons of the past would spill into their present lives. Social media, a force unimaginable in 1995, became a repository of speculation, theories, and confessions. Anonymous posts claimed knowledge, others tried to discredit the process, while journalists descended, cameras poised, microphones ready, amplifying the tension and ensuring that every creak of a floorboard or flicker of light would be scrutinized. Then the breakthrough arrived unexpectedly. A confession, partial, hesitant, spoken in a voice barely above a whisper, laden with remorse and fear. The details were chilling, more vivid than any imagination could conjure. The person described the sequence of events, the plan, the confrontation, the panic that led to a night of mistakes that no one had uncovered until now. Hayes recorded every word, heart-pounding as each revelation carved a path through decades of uncertainty. It was enough to reopen the investigation officially, to turn suspicion into legal scrutiny, but questions remained. What was left unspoken? What secrets were still buried under layers of denial and fear? Emily's family, long resigned to uncertainty, were thrust back into the whirlwind. Emotions collided. Relief at knowing part of the truth, grief for years lost, anger at the deception that had been carried on for so long. Their faces, lit by the soft glow of lamplight during the first interview after the confession, told a story that words could not capture. A combination of hope, despair, and disbelief. The town watched, some supportive, some judgmental, as the machinery of justice began to turn, slowly, methodically, against a backdrop of old photographs, yellowed newspaper clippings, and memories sharpened by the pain of the unresolved. As the investigation deepened, new leads emerged from the shadows. Unexpected witnesses came forward, some anonymously, some with trepidation, all offering fragments of a puzzle that had long been considered unsolvable. Each fragment, each statement, had the power to shift the narrative, to redraw the contours of what really happened that summer night in 1995. Surveillance photographs, logs from businesses, even weather reports were revisited, seeking anomalies, signs that could corroborate the confession, signs that could point to accomplices or overlook details. The confession, while shocking, was incomplete. Motive, intent, the question of whether this was an act of passion, of premeditation, or of something darker, remained obscured. Investigators worked tirelessly, cross-referencing timelines, reconstructing movements, examining every possible route that Emily could have taken, every location that might hold a clue. The sense of urgency was palpable, as if the past itself demanded reckoning, refusing to let the town rest until every stone had been turned. And so the case moved forward, a cold case no longer dormant, alive with whispers of guilt and revelation. The town, forever altered by Emily's disappearance, watched closely, every shadow on the street a reminder, every passing stranger a potential witness. The air seemed heavier, thick with expectation and dread, as though 1995 had never truly ended, merely paused, waiting for the moment when truth could finally pierce the veil. Emily's story, once frozen in time, began to take shape again, piece by fragile piece. And while the confession brought answers, it also opened wounds, resurfacing fears and insecurities long buried. Justice, still a work in progress, would demand patience and resolve, but the community knew one thing with certainty. The past had returned, relentless and unyielding, and the echoes of that night would resonate for years to come, haunting everyone who dared to remember, to hope, and to believe that closure, however partial, was finally within reach. The night of the confession left the town in a state of suspended disbelief, as if reality itself had tilted slightly off its axis. Detective Marcus Hayes stayed at the station long after everyone else had gone, staring at the array of files, photographs, and scribbled notes that now felt alive, buzzing with implications. The smell of coffee, cold and bitter, mingled with the faint scent of ink on paper, and somewhere, faintly, the echo of a clock ticking reminded him of how much time had already been lost, how much would never return. Every sound in the building seemed amplified. The hum of fluorescent lights, the creak of a radiator, the distant footsteps of a night janitor who might as well have been a phantom. Outside, the town was quiet, deceptively so. Windows glowed with the soft yellow of late-night lamps, the occasional car door slammed in the distance, and the wind rustled dry leaves along empty streets. But beneath the surface an unease lingered, a ripple of fear that traveled through walls and alleyways, touching anyone who remembered Emily Carter. Parents checked locks, neighbors whispered over fences, and even the dogs seemed restless, barking at nothing. A cold case, reopened, had the uncanny ability to stir old memories that were better left buried. The confession had mentioned a second figure, someone who had never been identified, someone who might still be out there. This shadow, elusive and dangerous, became the focus of Hayes' attention. He pored over the original notes from 1995, comparing handwriting, tracing phone records, and analyzing statements with the precision of a surgeon. Every pause, every hesitation in the decades-old interviews now seemed loaded with meaning, as if time had been keeping a secret, waiting for someone to finally listen. The investigators had initially dismissed inconsistencies as the natural decay of memory, but now each anomaly carried weight. Emily's room had been untouched for years, a mausoleum of adolescence frozen in amber. Hayes returned there after the confession, flashlight in hand, moving carefully among the furniture, noting the dust patterns and the faint marks on the floor. Underneath her bed, partially hidden beneath a threadbare rug, he found a scrap of paper that had never been catalogued, a hastily folded note, the ink faded but legible. It read, "I saw them. Don't trust anyone." No signature, no date. Just a stark warning that cut through the years like a knife. For Hayes, it was proof that someone had known, someone had watched, and that the mystery was deeper than even the confession suggested. The investigation team was expanded, bringing in fresh eyes from neighboring jurisdictions. Analysts, behavioral profilers, and cold case specialists were pulled together, each bringing their own expertise, each following leads that seemed to intersect at impossible angles. One analyst focused on digital reconstruction, creating maps of the lot where Emily was last seen, overlaying photographs from 1995 with satellite imagery, noting subtle changes in terrain that suggested where footprints, tire marks, or discarded items might have been overlooked. Every detail mattered, no matter how insignificant it had seemed 30 years ago. Interviews began anew, a delicate dance of eliciting memory without prompting falsehoods. Former friends, classmates, co-workers of the town's residents were questioned. Some remembered snippets of conversation, fragments of rumors, fleeting moments that had seemed unimportant at the time but now cast long shadows. One man, formerly a gas station attendant, described seeing a woman running across the lot, but hesitated, claiming he didn't want to get involved, that he had feared retaliation. Another witness, now elderly and frail, recounted a black sedan idling near the edge of town, headlights off, engine quiet, just like Carla had described all those years ago. The confession also hinted at something more sinister. Coercion, manipulation, the faintest suggestion of an accomplice operating in the periphery. Hayes couldn't ignore it. He began tracing associates of the confessor, reviewing employment records, social connections, even public library card usage. Each query brought faint traces, connections that were barely perceptible but undeniable when mapped. A pattern began to emerge, faint at first, like the outline of a figure in fog, suggesting that Emily's disappearance had not been the act of a lone individual but a carefully orchestrated event, obscured by fear, silence, and complicity. News of the reopened case spread, igniting a mixture of fascination and horror. The town's residents, many of whom had moved on, found themselves confronting a past they thought they had escaped. Local news crews, drones hovering over streets, and reporters combing through public records added another layer of intensity. Questions that had been whispered in the grocery store aisles or at the church now blared from television screens, accompanied by haunting photographs of Emily smiling, unaware that her life would be stolen by shadows no one had seen coming. The psychological toll on the investigators was evident. Hayes, normally composed, found himself waking in the middle of the night, dreams filled with fragments of Emily's last known moments. The fluttering curtains, the swaying swing in the empty lot, the distant rumble of the black sedan. He could hear her voice, faint and trembling, echoing warnings he hadn't understood. Each morning the weight of responsibility pressed harder, the knowledge that mistakes from decades ago could be rectified, but only if the living were willing to confront what they had ignored. A breakthrough came when forensic evidence was re-examined using techniques unavailable in 1995. Fibers on Emily's clothing were matched to an obscure textile, only sold to a handful of locations in Texas. Fingerprints, previously thought unidentifiable, were enhanced with new imaging technology, revealing partial impressions that hinted at a second person. Hayes cross-referenced these findings with the confession, realizing that the timeline was more intricate than first assumed. It suggested surveillance, planning, and an understanding of the town's rhythms, an intimate knowledge of where she would be, when, and how. Community tension rose as rumors proliferated. Online forums speculated wildly. Who was the second person? Was Emily still alive? Had the town protected someone? Older residents, long thought trustworthy, were scrutinized in ways they had never imagined. Social media posts revived old fears. Photographs from the 1990s resurfaced, showing cars, faces, and fleeting shadows that nobody had recognized as important. The town felt smaller, the streets narrower, as if the past had constricted reality, pressing in from all sides. The confession contained contradictions that demanded careful scrutiny. While some details were precise, others were vague, deliberately obscured. Hayes and his team had to navigate the delicate line between truth and deception, piecing together events from memory, physical evidence, and the faintest traces left behind in the world. The ambiguity was agonizing. Every potential lead could be the key or a dead end, and every misstep risked losing the fragile thread of truth entirely. Night after night, Hayes reviewed video footage from the original interviews, noting gestures, pauses, micro-expressions. Subtle cues that had seemed irrelevant now appeared loaded with meaning. A hand brushing hair nervously, a gaze darting to the corner of the room, lips pressing together as if holding a secret for decades. He realized that human behavior, even when hidden behind lies, carried an echo of truth. He began to trust instinct as much as evidence, letting intuition guide him down corridors of memory long thought sealed. The lot where Emily had vanished became a focal point again. Investigators scoured the brush, scanning for remnants overlooked in 1995. Fragments of clothing, small personal items, even minor disturbances in soil that suggested movement or struggle. It was painstaking work, and the heat of a Texas summer pressed down relentless. Yet the persistence yielded results. A single shoe buried beneath a mound of earth was recovered, still bearing traces of soil from the area, connecting it unmistakably to Emily. Though grim, it confirmed that some aspects of the confession aligned with the physical reality, giving the team hope that truth, though painful, could be reconstructed. As the investigation progressed, Hayes noticed subtle changes in the confessor's demeanor during follow-up interviews. Hesitation gave way to anger, confusion to clarity. The psychological unraveling hinted at guilt buried too deeply to remain contained any longer. Every revelation was a shockwave, unsettling long-held assumptions and demanding reconsideration of the motives, the planning, the hidden alliances. It became evident that uncovering Emily's fate required not only technical analysis but also penetrating the human psyche, understanding fear, loyalty, and the lengths to which someone would go to conceal a crime. Even with progress, the shadow of the unknown loomed large. The town could not rest, the family could not rest, and the investigators could not rest. Every clue uncovered, every new lead, deepened the realization that the 1995 disappearance had been more than an isolated act. It was a reflection of hidden dynamics, power, fear, and secrecy embedded in the very fabric of the community. And yet, despite years of investigation, confessions, and forensic breakthroughs, the full story remained tantalizingly out of reach, as if Emily herself was whispering from beyond the veil, urging the living to find the fragments, assemble them, and confront the truth no one wanted to face. The sun barely pierced the horizon when Detective Hayes arrived at the precinct, the air heavy with the promise of another sweltering Texas day. The town, still gripping the shock of the confession, seemed eerily quiet, streets empty, cars parked as if the residents themselves were holding their breath. Hayes felt the weight of the past pressing down, decades of unanswered questions coiling around him like barbed wire. He knew that today more than ever would require patience, precision, and the willingness to confront truths that most would rather leave buried. The team reconvened, assembling around a cluttered table strewn with photographs, maps, and reports. Each photo was a frozen fragment of 1995. Emily laughing at a school dance, her hair catching the sunlight, a black sedan parked just out of frame. The empty lot, overgrown and silent, whispering secrets to those who would listen. Handwritten notes, yellowed and creased, hinting at fears she had never voiced aloud. Hayes ran a hand over the evidence, feeling a strange intimacy with the girl he had never met. A connection born of relentless investigation and empathy sharpened by time. One lead demanded immediate attention. The black sedan. Witnesses had described it as unremarkable, yet its presence had lingered like a shadow over every memory of Emily's disappearance. Hayes traced the vehicle through DMV records, cross-referencing owners from 1995 onward. The trail led to a rental company long out of business, records fragmented, partially destroyed, but hints of names and addresses surfaced like whispers from the past. Hayes felt a shiver run down his spine. The sedan was not just a vehicle. It was a vessel of secrets, a silent witness that had carried the unspoken truth through decades. Meanwhile, forensic analysts scrutinized fibers recovered from Emily's clothing. Using newly developed techniques, they identified traces of an industrial chemical, rare and highly specific. Only a handful of facilities in Texas used it, narrowing the search to a small list of suspects. Hayes noted the coincidence. The chemical, the sedan, the confessor's knowledge of obscure details, all threads pointing toward a network, a plan more elaborate than a simple act of violence. Someone had watched, studied, and executed with terrifying precision. The thought made his pulse quicken. The case was no longer a cold file gathering dust. It was a live investigation, dangerous, unpredictable, and laden with human consequences. The confessor remained elusive in his demeanor. During interviews he revealed fragments, moments, locations, fleeting interactions, but carefully omitted critical details. Hayes pressed, probing gently, forcing memory to surface. The man flinched at each question, sweat forming on his brow, his eyes darting to corners of the room as if shadows themselves held the answers. There was fear, yes, but also pride, a subtle arrogance in knowing he had outsmarted the system for decades. The detectives had to navigate a labyrinth of deception, gauging truth against manipulation, intuition against fact, each word a potential key or trap. Community tension escalated. Local news outlets broadcast updates, their cameras capturing the subtle reactions of townsfolk. On street corners, neighbors whispered theories, some baseless, others chillingly accurate. Online, forums speculated, reconstructing timelines, piecing together what had been lost. Every rumor, every speculation, added pressure to the investigation, forcing Hayes and his team to sift fact from fiction with painstaking care. The town, once insulated from the brutal realities of human deception, now lived under the weight of scrutiny and the specter of long-buried secrets. A breakthrough emerged when Hayes re-examined security footage from a convenience store near the lot. Though grainy, it revealed a figure lurking near the perimeter, partially hidden by shadows. The posture, the gait, the mannerisms, they all hinted at someone familiar, someone who had been underestimated. Hayes cross-referenced the time of disappearance with the confessor's statements, noting subtle inconsistencies. The figure's presence suggested a level of premeditation, awareness of patrol patterns, knowledge of Emily's habits. The realization was chilling. This had not been a crime of opportunity but of calculation, a performance executed under the careful orchestration of someone who understood the town's rhythm intimately. Witness statements offered fragmented clarity. Carla Jennings, Emily's friend, provided details about a neighbor who had been unusually curious, someone who asked questions about her whereabouts under the guise of concern. At the time, the behavior had seemed harmless, even polite, but now, through the lens of the confession and forensic discovery, it appeared predatory. Hayes traced the neighbor's movements, uncovering a series of small anomalies. Trips coinciding with Emily's routine, unexplained absences, and subtle attempts to redirect attention from the lot. Every detail added weight to the theory that Emily's disappearance involved more than one orchestrator, a shadowed partnership hidden behind a veneer of civility. Amid the painstaking evidence collection, a psychological profile began to crystallize. Behavioral analysts pieced together the confessor's motives, revealing a complex interplay of obsession, control, and fear. The act had not been random. It was deliberate, calculated, informed by a desire to dominate and manipulate. Hayes noted patterns of grooming behavior, surveillance, and coercion that aligned with the partial confession. The realization that Emily had been ensnared by such dynamics sent a shiver through the team. The case was as much a study of human darkness as it was a pursuit of justice. Media coverage intensified, drawing attention far beyond the town. Reporters dug into archives, resurrecting interviews, photographs, and old police notes. Some attempted sensationalism, others sought truth. The constant presence of cameras and microphones created pressure on witnesses, victims' families, and investigators alike. Hayes struggled with the duality, the need to maintain investigative integrity while navigating the glare of public scrutiny. Every statement, every action became a potential headline, a piece of a narrative that could distort or clarify the truth. A minor yet critical discovery occurred when a former classmate of Emily's recalled a fleeting encounter. He remembered a figure in a black sedan, the engine softly rumbling, watching Emily from the periphery as she left a friend's house. At the time, he had dismissed it as coincidence, a familiar stranger on a summer evening. Now, it aligned precisely with the timeline revealed in the confession. Hayes felt a surge of validation. These fragmentary memories, dismissed for decades, were now pieces of a coherent puzzle. Each recollection reinforced the idea that Emily's disappearance had been witnessed repeatedly, yet no one had comprehended the significance until now. The confessor's partial revelation hinted at a second site, a hidden location where Emily had been briefly detained. Hayes orchestrated a systematic search, guided by intuition and the subtle cues embedded in decades-old testimony. Every inch of the terrain was scanned, mapped, and cross-referenced with historical records. Traces emerged, scattered debris, faint chemical residues, impressions in the soil, all suggestive of movement and concealment. The investigators faced the daunting task of reconstructing an event long obscured by time, memory, and deliberate obfuscation. As Hayes dug deeper, he encountered resistance from unexpected quarters. Former acquaintances of the confessor denied knowledge, neighbors recanted statements, and digital records were incomplete or erased. The passage of time had eroded certainty, leaving the investigation reliant on fragments, interpretations, and deductions. Hayes reminded himself that the human mind often conceals more than it reveals, that memory is malleable, and that the truth often hides in plain sight, accessible only to those willing to see it. Amid this intricate web of investigation, Emily's family endured a resurgence of grief, hope, and anxiety. Each discovery, each partial revelation was a double-edged sword. A glimpse at closure, yet a reminder of the long, agonizing years spent in limbo. Their home, once quiet and resigned, became a hub of anxious anticipation, media interviews, and community speculation. The emotional toll was immense, yet they remained resolute, determined to see justice pursued, however slowly or painfully it might unfold. The confession, while shocking, left as many questions as answers. Why had Emily been targeted? Who else might have been involved? And most hauntingly, what had been lost in the silence of decades? Hayes confronted the reality that some aspects of the past might never be fully known, that the shadows of human behavior were complex, dark, and resistant to complete illumination. Yet the pursuit of truth, relentless and methodical, pressed on, driven by evidence, intuition, and an unwavering commitment to justice. Each day, the team returned to the lot, to the files, to the witnesses, weaving together a tapestry of memory, evidence, and confession. Every detail mattered. The placement of objects, the timing of movements, the faintest trace of chemical residue. It was a meticulous, painstaking reconstruction of a night that had eluded clarity for decades. And yet, the process itself was transformative, not only for the investigators but for the town, the family, and the community. The cold case, long dormant, had been awakened, and with awakening came confrontation of fear, guilt, memory, and the undeniable weight of truth. Morning broke over the town like a pale warning, the sun casting long, thin shadows across streets that had learned to hide secrets. Detective Hayes arrived early at the precinct, coffee in hand, fatigue etched into the lines of his face. The confession had rattled the community, but it had also opened doors no one had expected. Files that had been untouched for decades suddenly took on new life. Photographs, scribbled notes, and witness statements lay spread across tables, each document a pulse in the growing heartbeat of a case long thought dead. The team reconvened in the cramped conference room, its walls lined with maps, whiteboards scrawled with names, dates, and arrows connecting fragments of a life interrupted. Each connection told a story. Emily's movements on the night she vanished, the path of the black sedan, the shadowed corners where eyes had followed her, unnoticed yet insistent. Hayes moved deliberately, pointing at lines and markers, drawing connections between fibers, chemical residues, and partial confessions. Each lead seemed both tantalizingly close and impossibly distant, a reminder of the complex web woven over decades. New forensic analyses began to yield results. Fibers from Emily's clothing matched industrial-grade fabrics used in nearby warehouses. Chemical traces suggested exposure to substances uncommon in domestic environments, implying that she had been brought into a space prepared for concealment, a place designed to erase evidence. Hayes realized that someone had thought of every detail, had planned meticulously, and had executed the disappearance with a chilling efficiency. The precision of the crime made it more than a tragedy. It was a statement, an assertion of control over a life, over a community, over truth itself. The confession contained a cryptic reference to a hidden compartment within one of the town's older warehouses. Hayes coordinated a search, scanning the building inch by inch. Dust particles rose with every step, sunlight slanting through broken windows, illuminating corners long neglected. It was as if the warehouse had absorbed decades of silence, each creaking floorboard and rusted nail a witness to history. And then in a corner near a storage locker they found it. A shallow recess in the concrete, partially concealed by debris. Inside, remnants of clothing, faint traces of chemical residue, and a small diary, its pages brittle but intact. Hayes felt a chill. Decades of absence had condensed into this one discovery. The diary, Emily's handwriting unmistakable, offered fragments of her fear, observations, and intuition. She had noted strange glances, unidentified vehicles, and the feeling of being followed, words now heavy with the weight of prescience. One entry, dated the day before her disappearance, read, "I think someone is planning to take me. I don't know who I can trust. I hope I'm wrong." The words struck Hayes with the force of revelation. She had sensed the danger, documented it, yet no one had been able to prevent it. Her voice, preserved in ink and paper, became a guide, a testament, and a haunting echo that underscored the stakes of the investigation. Witness interviews intensified. Former neighbors recounted fleeting details, glimpses of figures watching from porches, cars idling in unusual locations, the subtle adjustment of curtains when Emily passed by. One elderly man remembered a strange sound, a low mechanical hum, coming from the lot where Emily was last seen, something that had gone unnoticed at the time but now hinted at preparation, planning, and perhaps even surveillance. Hayes cross-referenced these recollections with physical evidence, noting a chilling pattern. Emily's disappearance had not been chaotic. It had been orchestrated with an almost surgical precision. Digital reconstruction of the lot provided a new perspective. Using satellite imagery from 1995 and 1996, analysts mapped vegetation growth, soil disturbances, and subtle depressions, revealing potential paths taken during the abduction. Hayes studied the overlays meticulously, each detail bringing him closer to understanding the sequence of events. The team simulated movements of vehicles and individuals, reconstructing timelines with unprecedented clarity. It was a painstaking process, but each revelation added weight to the confession, confirming that the perpetrator's knowledge of Emily's habits had been intimate enough to orchestrate a disappearance that had eluded detection for decades. The confessor's statements, though fragmented, revealed glimpses of panic and uncertainty. Hayes noted changes in demeanor with every retelling: hesitation, averted gaze, and occasional tremors of the hand. The psychological profile suggested someone highly intelligent, capable of manipulation, yet burdened by conscience. These contradictions offered investigators a foothold, a way to probe deeper, challenge assertions, and validate evidence. Hayes understood that unraveling the truth required balancing forensic precision with psychological insight, reading the unspoken as much as the spoken. Media scrutiny intensified. News vans lined streets, drones hovered above neighborhoods, and social media buzzed with speculation, theories, and accusations. Hayes and his team were constantly aware of the public eye, knowing that any misstep could distort perceptions, jeopardize leads, or taint testimony. Yet, this attention also pressured witnesses to come forward, some of whom had remained silent for decades. Anonymous tips began trickling in, small, fragmentary, yet occasionally aligning with the confession and physical evidence. Each piece was a puzzle fragment, some fitting neatly, others defying placement, demanding patience, discernment, and tenacity. One tip led Hayes to an abandoned farm on the outskirts of town, a property with a history of neglect and secrecy. The team approached cautiously, scanning the perimeter, noting subtle disturbances in soil and vegetation. Ground-penetrating radar detected anomalies, small cavities just beneath the surface, possibly temporary concealment sites. Hayes felt a mixture of anticipation and dread. The farm, long forgotten, had become a focal point, a physical space where past actions had left tangible traces. As the team excavated, remnants of fabric and personal items emerged, corroborating timelines and hinting at movements never previously documented. The emotional impact on Emily's family was profound. Each discovery, each fragment of evidence, was a mixture of relief, horror, and anticipation. Hayes observed their reactions closely, aware that closure, when partial or delayed, could be both healing and traumatic. The family's resilience, coupled with their willingness to revisit painful memories, became an integral component of the investigation. Their perspective offered context, corroboration, and an emotional compass guiding investigators through the labyrinth of long-buried events. Psychological analysis revealed disturbing dynamics within the confessor's relationships. Patterns of coercion, control, and subtle manipulation emerged, suggesting that Emily's abduction was not solely opportunistic, but involved careful orchestration influenced by complex social interactions. Hayes examined these dynamics in detail, identifying potential accomplices or enablers, individuals whose silence or indirect participation had allowed the disappearance to remain unresolved for decades. The revelation deepened the mystery, underscoring the multifaceted nature of human deception and the challenges of uncovering truth long after events have transpired. Forensic breakthroughs continued. Advanced chemical testing confirmed the presence of substances consistent with temporary incapacitation, aligning with the confessor's account. Fiber analysis linked the recovered clothing to specific industrial sources, narrowing potential locations for further searches. Each discovery reinforced the narrative of a carefully executed abduction, providing tangible anchors for investigators piecing together a story that had long existed only in memory, speculation, and fragments of confession. Community reactions were mixed, relief at progress tempered by lingering fear and suspicion. Local residents revisited memories, noting details they had previously dismissed, reinterpreting past events through the lens of new evidence. Hayes observed the subtle tension in public spaces, the cautious glances, the whispered conversations, understanding that the reopened case was reshaping not only the investigation but the very fabric of the town's collective memory. As Hayes reviewed the latest findings, a chilling realization emerged. Emily's disappearance, while partially explained, remained layered with unknowns. The confession, forensic evidence, and witness accounts provided a framework, yet gaps persisted. The full scope of planning, the identities of potential accomplices, and the ultimate fate of certain actions remained elusive. The detective felt the familiar pulse of urgency, knowing that every hour, every day, brought both opportunity and risk, and that unresolved questions had a way of festering, influencing human behavior long after the initial act. The investigation's momentum built toward a crescendo. Hayes and his team coordinated simultaneous efforts. Forensic labs analyzed recovered items, interviewers revisited witnesses, and analysts reconstructed digital and physical environments. Each action was synchronized, deliberate, a reflection of lessons learned from decades of unresolved mystery. The interplay between old evidence and modern technology created a dynamic environment where each revelation, each correlation, had the potential to unlock new avenues or expose hidden contradictions. In the quiet moments between searches, Hayes reflected on the human element, the fear, courage, and resilience that had defined the town, the family, and the investigators themselves. Emily's life, interrupted by unknown hands, had become a symbol of unresolved grief, persistent hope, and the relentless pursuit of truth. Hayes understood that while the case had evolved from cold to active, the emotional resonance would remain, haunting the community, shaping behavior, and influencing perceptions for years to come. And as dusk fell, casting long shadows over streets, lot, and warehouse, Hayes felt the weight of decades pressing on the present. The past was no longer a distant abstraction. It was immediate, palpable, demanding attention, confrontation, and reckoning. The cold case, long dormant, had awakened fully, and with it came the knowledge that the journey toward justice was far from over, yet impossibly close, poised on the fragile line between revelation and despair. Night had fallen like a blanket suffocating the town, heavy and unyielding. Detective Hayes stayed late at the precinct, eyes fixed on the cluster of photographs and maps sprawled across the table. Every shadow, every object, every scrap of paper seemed to pulse with intent. The confession, while partial, had opened doors, but it had also introduced complications Hayes had not anticipated. The mention of a second figure, someone unseen, someone deliberate, loomed over the investigation like a specter, its presence as chilling as it was elusive. The team reconvened for a strategy session. Analysts cross-referenced witness accounts, fiber evidence, and chemical residues, overlaying them on maps of the town and surrounding areas. Hayes pointed to subtle anomalies. A deviation in the path Emily had been seen taking, a faint trace of a tire mark partially obscured by overgrowth, the placement of discarded items in locations previously overlooked. Each clue hinted at the second person, someone orchestrating movements behind the veil of normalcy. The town, once considered peaceful, revealed a web of hidden interactions, patterns of observation, and silent complicity that had gone unnoticed for decades. A breakthrough came when a long-retired mechanic came forward. He recalled seeing a black sedan parked near a warehouse, engine off on multiple nights, coinciding with Emily's last known whereabouts. At the time, he had dismissed it as mundane, a routine observation, but now, with the context of confession and forensic evidence, his testimony gained weight. Hayes felt a familiar chill, the realization that the town had been unknowingly observed, and perhaps manipulated, brought the events of 1995 into sharp focus. The second figure, invisible yet present, had been watching, learning, calculating. Forensic evidence continued to corroborate fragments of the confession. Chemical residues matched those found in previously unexplored locations, suggesting temporary containment sites. Hayes traced fibers from Emily's clothing to specific industrial sources, narrowing potential locations for further searches. Each discovery reinforced the notion that the abduction had been meticulously planned, executed with a precision that suggested surveillance, knowledge of routines, and intimate understanding of human behavior. Emily had been ensnared in a web of calculation, and the town had been an unwitting stage. Witnesses were revisited. Carla Jennings, Emily's best friend, provided details she had withheld for fear of disbelief, noting subtle interactions, fleeting glances, and whispered conversations. Her memories, once dismissed, now aligned with forensic findings, revealing patterns of observation and manipulation previously unnoticed. Another witness recalled a figure following Emily across the lot, remaining in the shadows, silent, yet present. Hayes felt the tension rise. The second figure was no longer theoretical. The evidence suggested a deliberate, patient actor, someone who had orchestrated events over months, perhaps even years, anticipating every reaction, every move. The confessor revealed further fragments, hints at a location described only vaguely. Hayes coordinated searches, sweeping abandoned warehouses, fields, and storage facilities. Modern forensic tools, including thermal imaging and ground-penetrating radar, revealed disturbances, small cavities, and traces consistent with movement and concealment. The discoveries, though partial, confirmed that Emily's abduction had been more than a momentary lapse in safety. It had been an orchestrated operation, precise and terrifying. Media coverage intensified. Cameras, drones, and microphones captured residents' reactions, creating an atmosphere of heightened anxiety. Social media buzzed with speculation, theories, and accusations, amplifying the community's unease. Hayes understood the duality. Public attention was both a pressure and a tool, encouraging witnesses to come forward while complicating the investigation with rumor and conjecture. The town was alive with whispers, shadows of the past bleeding into present consciousness, every glance, every gesture potentially carrying weight. Emily's family endured renewed emotional turmoil. Each discovery, each partial revelation, brought relief and horror intertwined. Their lives, long suspended in uncertainty, were now confronted with fragments of truth, each shard sharper than the last. Hayes observed their reactions closely, aware that their resilience was both remarkable and fragile. Their involvement became a driving force, providing context, corroboration, and a human lens through which investigators could interpret evidence and testimony. A critical lead emerged from digital reconstruction of the lot. Analysis of vegetation patterns, soil disturbances, and subtle depressions revealed potential pathways and concealment areas previously unexamined. Hayes coordinated simulations of Emily's movements, overlaying witness statements and confessor details, creating a precise model of the abduction sequence. The clarity, though partial, allowed the team to focus subsequent searches and interrogations, narrowing possibilities and reinforcing the confessor's account. The psychological profile of the confessor deepened. Analysts highlighted patterns of coercion, control, and manipulation, suggesting that the abduction had been informed by intimate knowledge of Emily's routines, relationships, and vulnerabilities. Hayes realized that uncovering the second figure required understanding not only physical movements but psychological dynamics, the interplay of fear, trust, and influence. Every interview, every observation, every fragment of memory became a tool to illuminate the hidden actor behind the curtain. Resistance surfaced from unexpected quarters. Former acquaintances denied knowledge, neighbors recanted statements, and digital records were incomplete or corrupted. The passage of decades had eroded certainty, leaving investigators reliant on memory, deduction, and evidence painstakingly reconstructed. Hayes reminded himself that human behavior, even when obscured, leaves traces. The task was to follow those traces through years of dust, deception, and silence, to reconstruct the chain of events that had led to Emily's disappearance. The search of the abandoned farm intensified. Thermal imaging revealed anomalies beneath the soil, subtle variations in temperature consistent with previous disturbance. Hayes oversaw the excavation, uncovering small items of clothing, personal artifacts, and chemical traces aligning with forensic analysis. Each discovery validated portions of the confession, yet also introduced new questions. What had occurred in this location? How long had Emily been exposed? Were there other sites, other participants whose presence had yet to be revealed? The confessor exhibited shifts in demeanor during follow-up interviews. Hesitation gave way to agitation, confusion to fleeting clarity. Analysts observed micro-expressions, twitches, subtle eye movements, tightening of the jaw, indicating emotional stress, guilt, and recognition of accountability. Hayes interpreted these signals cautiously, using them to guide questioning, validate evidence, and anticipate omissions. The psychological interplay became a central tool in unraveling a narrative deliberately concealed for decades. Community reaction reached a critical point. Residents revisited memories, reinterpreted past events, and reconsidered the behavior of neighbors and acquaintances. Fear, suspicion, and curiosity mingled, creating a tense atmosphere in public spaces. Hayes noted the subtle social dynamics, recognizing that the investigation's progression influenced behavior, perception, and memory. The town itself had become a participant, its collective consciousness shaped by investigation, evidence, and media attention. The confessor hinted at yet another concealed site, a location previously unconsidered. Hayes coordinated a focused search, examining soil, vegetation, and structural anomalies. Traces of movement and chemical residue were found, providing additional confirmation of the abduction's scope and methodology. Each finding reinforced the narrative. Emily's disappearance had been executed with deliberate intent, precision, and planning, involving multiple locations and possibly more than one actor. The forensic team confirmed the presence of substances used for temporary incapacitation, consistent with the confessor's account. Fibers and chemical traces were cross-referenced, establishing links between sites, objects, and timelines. Hayes realized the case had evolved beyond a simple abduction. It was a complex orchestration, a choreography of concealment and manipulation, meticulously executed and painstakingly reconstructed decades later. Witness interviews continued to provide fragmentary insights. Observations once dismissed as trivial, aligned with forensic evidence, revealing patterns of surveillance, control, and manipulation. Hayes synthesized these accounts, constructing a detailed timeline of Emily's movements, interactions, and the shadowed activities of those involved. The confessor's testimony, combined with physical evidence and witness recollection, allowed for a reconstruction of events unprecedented in clarity. Emily's family, absorbing each revelation, experienced a spectrum of emotions: relief at partial understanding, anguish at past helplessness, and determination to pursue justice. Their involvement, marked by courage and resilience, became central to the investigation's progression. Hayes observed their responses, recognizing the interplay of memory, emotion, and evidence in shaping the pursuit of truth. The second figure, still unconfirmed, remained the focal point of the investigation. Hayes understood that uncovering this individual required patience, insight, and careful correlation of evidence. Witness statements, forensic findings, and confessor hints were synthesized, identifying possible candidates and narrowing investigative focus. Each day brought incremental progress, yet the full scope of involvement remained tantalizingly elusive, a shadow over the town, the family, and the investigators themselves. As dusk approached, the precinct hummed with quiet urgency. Hayes reviewed timelines, mapped evidence, and coordinated search strategies. The past, long dormant, had awakened fully, demanding attention, confrontation, and resolution. The cold case, once a file-gathering dust, had become a living, breathing investigation, reshaping the town's understanding of itself, its residents, and the long-buried truths of 1995. And in the quiet moments, Hayes felt the persistent weight of Emily's absence, the haunting resonance of unanswered questions, and the inexorable drive toward revelation. Each clue, each fragment, each confession was a step toward clarity, yet the shadows lingered, a reminder that truth, even when partially revealed, carries the power to unsettle, to challenge, and to demand reckoning. The air in the precinct was thick with anticipation. Detective Hayes moved between maps, evidence boards, and photographs, tracing lines and timelines as if drawing the contours of Emily's vanished world. Each piece of the puzzle demanded attention, yet the confessor's hints about a second figure loomed over the investigation, shadowing every decision. The second actor, unseen but pervasive, had orchestrated parts of the abduction that even decades later could unsettle the most seasoned investigator. Hayes felt the weight of responsibility pressing against him. Mistakes could allow that shadow to remain hidden, to evade justice once more. A breakthrough came when analysts re-examined phone records from 1995. Fragmented logs revealed calls and messages previously overlooked, patterns suggesting coordination between two unknown individuals. Hayes leaned over the table, tracing the connections with his finger. The pieces of the puzzle began to form shapes, an echo of movement, a shadow of surveillance, hints of an unseen hand. The second figure, who had once existed only in speculation, now began to coalesce into a tangible target. Each line on the map, each timestamp, brought clarity and dread in equal measure. Witness interviews were revisited with renewed focus. Carla Jennings recalled a neighbor who had been overly attentive, asking subtle questions about Emily's routines, her habits, and the timing of family activities. At the time, the behavior seemed innocuous, even polite, yet in retrospect, it aligned perfectly with the confessor's account. Hayes pressed further, probing inconsistencies, watching for micro-expressions, hesitation, and other subtle cues. The second figure, operating in plain sight, had relied on observation, patience, and manipulation. A predator hidden behind the mask of ordinary life. Forensic work continued at a fevered pace. Chemical residues recovered from abandoned sites were analyzed, confirming the presence of substances designed to temporarily incapacitate. Fibers and trace elements were cross-referenced with industrial sources, narrowing potential locations where Emily had been held. Hayes coordinated searches at multiple locations simultaneously, aware that every delay risked contamination or loss of evidence. The meticulous work revealed a terrifying level of premeditation. Emily's abduction had not been opportunistic, it had been executed with careful attention to detail, timing, and geography. The confessor's demeanor shifted subtly during questioning. Initially defensive and controlled, he began to exhibit signs of strain. Shifting eyes, tightened jaw, sporadic muttering under breath. Hayes recognized the pattern. The psychological toll of maintaining deception for decades. The gnawing weight of suppressed memory. These cues guided interrogation strategy, helping extract information while preserving the integrity of the confession. Analysts noted microgestures that suggested acknowledgement of unspoken truths, fragments pointing toward locations and individuals still hidden from view. Community tension escalated. Media coverage intensified, with reporters staking out the precinct, townsfolk discussing theories in hushed tones, and online speculation reaching fever pitch. The town, once insulated from scrutiny, now existed under a glare of public attention. Hayes understood the duality. While pressure could encourage witnesses to come forward, it also risked contamination of memory, misinterpretation of evidence, and the creation of false leads. Navigating this landscape required a delicate balance between transparency, discretion, and strategic secrecy. Emily's family remained central to the investigation. Each new discovery elicited a cascade of emotions: hope, grief, anger, and determination. Hayes observed the interplay between their resilience and vulnerability, understanding that their insights, memories, and emotional cues could guide the investigation in ways physical evidence could not. Each family conversation offered subtle context, shedding light on overlooked details, patterns of behavior, and relationships that had been obscured by time. The second figure remained elusive, yet tangible traces began to surface. Surveillance photographs, witness recollections, and forensic evidence converged on a series of locations previously dismissed as unrelated. Hayes coordinated site visits, meticulously scanning terrain for anomalies, subtle depressions, displaced vegetation, faint traces of chemical residues. These markers, though faint, suggested movement, concealment, and planning. The abduction had been executed with the precision of a strategist, each act anticipating the response of the town, the family, and the authorities. Digital reconstruction provided unprecedented insight. Analysts overlaid 1995 aerial imagery with current topography, identifying subtle changes in vegetation, soil, and structures. These reconstructions revealed potential pathways, hiding spots, and vantage points, enabling the team to map movement and concealment with surprising accuracy. Hayes traced these paths, imagining Emily's last moments, reconstructing scenarios, and anticipating the second figure's behavior. The tension of visualization was almost unbearable. Every shadow, every trajectory, a haunting echo of the past. Witnesses recalled fleeting interactions, moments previously dismissed as trivial. One elderly resident remembered a figure lurking near the warehouse, partially obscured, observing Emily's movements without drawing attention. Another recalled subtle manipulations: doors slightly ajar, vehicles parked strategically, conversations designed to mislead. These fragments, when connected, formed a lattice of intent, a shadow network orchestrated by the unseen actor. Hayes recognized the chilling implication. The town had been silently monitored, manipulated, and controlled by someone operating in plain sight. Forensic breakthroughs continued. Fibers and residues were traced to specific industrial suppliers, narrowing the circle of potential suspects. Soil samples and chemical analyses corroborated witness accounts and confessor statements, validating the reconstructed sequence of events. Each discovery reinforced the idea that the second figure was not only present but central to the execution of the abduction. Hayes felt the weight of each finding. The closer they got, the more dangerous and volatile the investigation became. The confessor provided a critical clue, a reference to an overlooked outbuilding, abandoned for decades, located on the periphery of town. Hayes organized a detailed search, employing ground-penetrating radar, thermal imaging, and forensic teams. Inside, they discovered remnants consistent with temporary containment, fragments of clothing, and subtle chemical traces. Each find confirmed portions of the confessor's account while simultaneously opening new questions about the second figure's involvement and methods. The meticulous execution, coupled with the concealment strategy, demonstrated a level of planning that was both impressive and terrifying. Psychological profiling suggested that the second figure had a high degree of awareness, patience, and adaptability. Hayes and his team reviewed behavioral patterns, witness statements, and confessor inconsistencies, seeking anomalies that could identify the hidden actor. Patterns emerged: strategic absences, calculated observations, and subtle manipulations, painting a portrait of a person both methodical and ruthless, someone capable of orchestrating events while remaining undetected for decades. The community remained on edge. Media scrutiny, public discussion, and the resurfacing of old memories created an atmosphere of tension, suspicion, and fear. Residents revisited past interactions, questioning the motives of neighbors, acquaintances, and even family members. Hayes understood the profound impact. The investigation had awakened not just the case, but the town's collective consciousness, forcing confrontation with buried fears, unspoken truths, and the haunting question of who could be trusted. Emily's family, navigating a torrent of discovery and revelation, remained resolute. Each new clue offered hope tempered by grief, illuminating paths previously obscured by time. Hayes relied on their recollections, insights, and emotional reactions, recognizing that the human element was as crucial as any forensic technique. Their courage, determination, and engagement provided context and direction, anchoring the investigation amid the complexity of evidence, speculation, and confession. As the investigation progressed, Hayes felt a growing convergence of evidence. The confession, forensic findings, witness testimony, and digital reconstructions all pointed toward the existence of the second figure. The pattern was undeniable: a shadow operating with precision, influencing events and remaining hidden. Each discovery, while partial, reinforced the reality that Emily's disappearance had been orchestrated by more than one actor, each element of the abduction executed with deliberate intent. By nightfall, Hayes reviewed timelines, evidence maps, and reconstructions. The town, though outwardly quiet, thrummed with unresolved tension. The past, long dormant, had asserted itself with force, demanding acknowledgement, confrontation, and resolution. The cold case had evolved into a living investigation, its threads intertwined with the town, the family, and the investigators. Every clue, every fragment of memory, every confession was a step closer to truth. Yet the shadows lingered, a reminder that the full story remained just beyond reach, tantalizingly close, yet perilously concealed. The first hint of dawn slipped through the blinds, casting thin, uncertain lines across the precinct's evidence room. Detective Hayes sat alone for a moment, staring at the board crowded with photographs, timelines, and scrawled notes, feeling the weight of decades pressing on his shoulders. The confessor's partial revelations had opened doors, but the specter of the second figure, methodical, hidden, ever watchful, hovered over every lead. It was no longer a theory. The evidence now painted the second actor as central, orchestrating movements with the patience and cunning of someone who had studied the town, the family, and Emily herself. Hayes knew the confrontation would be inevitable, and that the stakes had never been higher. The forensic lab buzzed with activity. New analyses on recovered fibers and chemical traces had provided crucial validation. Patterns emerged across multiple sites: slight soil depressions at the warehouse, residue consistent with incapacitation agents, and fibers from industrial clothing matching items previously discarded at peripheral locations. Hayes examined the overlay maps, tracing movement through streets, lots, and abandoned buildings. Each pathway suggested surveillance, anticipation, and deliberate concealment. The second figure was meticulous, aware of patrol schedules, eyewitnesses, and the terrain itself. Every step, every observation had been executed with precision. Witnesses were interviewed in rapid succession. Carla Jennings revisited details she had suppressed for years, describing subtle observations: a figure pausing near Emily's home, vehicles positioned strategically, conversations overheard but dismissed. Other neighbors offered corroborating accounts, often remembered only when prompted with dates, times, or locations. Hayes connected these fragments, noting consistency with the confessor's statements and forensic evidence. The pattern was undeniable. The second figure had operated in plain sight, manipulating events while remaining undetected, a ghost threading through the town's collective memory. Digital reconstruction provided the clearest insight yet. Analysts overlaid satellite imagery from 1995 with present-day topography, revealing slight vegetation disturbances, structural changes, and subtle soil irregularities. Paths were mapped, potential observation points highlighted, and movement simulations reconstructed Emily's final hours. Hayes walked these reconstructed paths mentally, imagining the careful orchestration, the calculated anticipation, and the chilling absence of chance. The abduction had been a study in precision, a choreography executed over months, and only now, decades later, could investigators begin to comprehend the full scope. The confessor revealed a critical clue: a reference to a location previously considered insignificant, a small abandoned storage shed on the outskirts of town. Hayes organized a coordinated search, employing thermal imaging, ground-penetrating radar, and a forensic sweep. Inside, the team discovered fragments of clothing, traces of chemicals consistent with prior analysis, and minor artifacts suggesting human presence, discarded wrappers, faint impressions in dust, and the unmistakable echo of prior occupation. Each discovery confirmed partial elements of the confession, yet also raised new questions about the second figure's role and method. Community tension reached its peak. Media coverage intensified, with journalists broadcasting live from town streets, residents debating in hushed tones, and online speculation reaching fevered heights. Hayes observed the dynamics, understanding that public attention could yield both cooperation and complication. Rumors swirled, theories proliferated, and the town itself became a character in the unfolding drama, its memory, fear, and speculation shaping the trajectory of the investigation. Emily's family endured waves of emotion. Hope, fear, grief, and determination intertwined. Each discovery brought clarity and heartbreak simultaneously. Hayes relied on their recollections, subtle reactions, and observations as much as physical evidence, understanding that their emotional compass offered context and insight inaccessible through forensic means alone. Their presence anchored the investigation, reminding the team of the human stakes beneath the procedural rigor. Then came the breakthrough. Forensic analysis of residues in the shed suggested recent disturbances inconsistent with the confessor's timeline. Fiber analysis revealed the presence of an industrial-grade fabric, rare and specific, linking to a small number of facilities in the region. Cross-referencing with past sightings, vehicle registrations, and witness testimony highlighted a person of interest, someone with access to the town, intimate knowledge of Emily's routines, and the ability to remain undetected while orchestrating events. Hayes felt the familiar rush of adrenaline. Months of investigation, decades of dormancy, were now converging on a tangible target. The second figure's identity remained officially unconfirmed, but their profile began to emerge through behavioral analysis. Patterns of observation, subtle interference, and strategic manipulation suggested intelligence, patience, and a chilling detachment from consequences. Hayes studied the behavioral cues, calculated absences, minor misdirections, and meticulous attention to environment and perception. Every act had been deliberate, designed to obfuscate, control, and mislead. The realization pressed heavily. Emily's disappearance had not been random, but the product of a mind honed for manipulation. Investigation at the abandoned farm yielded further insight. Thermal imaging and ground-penetrating radar detected anomalies, soil disturbances, and hidden cavities. Each excavation revealed faint traces, remnants of clothing, subtle chemical markers, and minor personal artifacts, corroborating witness recollections and confessor testimony. Hayes pieced together sequences of movement, reconstructing the abduction's choreography, anticipating the second figure's calculations. It was a painstaking, almost unbearable process, but with each fragment uncovered, the case inched closer to revelation. Interrogation of the confessor intensified. Micro-expressions betrayed anxiety, hesitation, and fleeting moments of recognition. Hayes leveraged these cues, gently pressing for clarification, piecing together narratives that had been deliberately obfuscated. Analysts noted patterns in speech, pauses, and gaze shifts, correlating them with evidence, timelines, and witness testimony. The psychological interplay between confessor and investigator became a key instrument in unveiling truths long hidden. Each exchange a delicate negotiation between revelation and concealment. Witness testimony, previously fragmented, coalesced. Observations of vehicles, shadowed figures, and unusual interactions aligned with physical evidence, reconstructing a web of surveillance, manipulation, and anticipation. Hayes traced these interconnections meticulously, understanding that the second figure had exploited ordinary life as camouflage, blending observation with timing, invisibility with presence. The town's collective memory, once passive, now served as an archive of subtle details, guiding the investigation toward clarity. The confessor hinted at further locations, each less obvious than the last. Hayes coordinated searches, employing forensic, technological, and psychological methods to uncover traces of movement, concealment, and interaction. Minor artifacts, dust impressions, chemical residues, fragments of personal items, provided evidence of temporary occupancy and manipulation. Every discovery reinforced the notion that Emily's disappearance had been the product of orchestrated planning, calculated anticipation, and meticulous concealment by more than one actor. Community scrutiny intensified as discoveries became public. Residents revisited past events, reinterpreted interactions, and questioned long-standing assumptions. Hayes observed the subtle shifts in behavior, the wariness in glances, the careful recalibration of memory and narrative. The investigation, though procedural, had become a catalyst for communal reflection, unearthing latent suspicion, collective memory, and the shared trauma of decades-long uncertainty. Emily's family navigated a complex emotional landscape. Relief and hope were tempered by renewed grief and lingering uncertainty. Hayes relied on their insights, contextual understanding, and recollections, which often illuminated overlooked aspects of the case. Each family member's perspective became integral, providing human depth to forensic analysis and psychological profiling. Their perseverance underscored the human stakes, reminding investigators that the pursuit of justice was as much about closure as it was about evidence. By nightfall, Hayes felt the first tremors of closure approaching. The second figure, though not fully identified, had been mapped in behavior, influence, and presence. Patterns aligned with forensic evidence, witness testimony, and confessor statements. Every shadowed step, every manipulation, every calculated observation became discernible, forming a network that, once confirmed, would finally illuminate the darkness that had persisted for decades. And as the precinct lights dimmed, Hayes reflected on the convergence of past and present. The cold case, long dormant, had transformed into an active pursuit of truth, each fragment of evidence, each confession, each recollection bringing the town, the family, and the investigators closer to understanding the unimaginable. Emily's absence, once a void, now had contours, edges, and textures, a narrative partially revealed yet charged with lingering mystery. The shadows of 1995 had been disturbed, but the final confrontation, the ultimate revelation, still awaited, perched on the fragile edge of time, memory, and consequence. The night was heavy, pressing against the town with an almost tangible weight. Detective Hayes drove slowly through familiar streets, streetlights flickering, shadows stretching long and uncertain. The confessor's statements had led them closer than ever to the truth, yet the second figure remained elusive, a phantom embedded in the memory of the town, the family, and every witness. Hayes felt the tight coil of anticipation in his chest, knowing that each step, each decision, could unravel years of painstaking reconstruction or finally illuminate the darkness that had persisted for decades. Forensic teams converged on the newly identified locations. Dust, debris, and decay bore silent witness to events long past. Fragments of clothing, faint chemical residues, and subtle soil disturbances revealed patterns of movement consistent with previous analysis. Each discovery validated partial elements of the confession, while introducing new questions about the second figure's methods, intentions, and psychological state. Hayes examined every trace meticulously, tracing paths through abandoned warehouses, fields, and hidden alcoves, reconstructing sequences with precision and dread. Witness testimony aligned more clearly now, a web of recollections forming an intricate lattice of observation and action. Neighbors recalled fleeting glances, unfamiliar vehicles, and subtle manipulations in the days surrounding Emily's disappearance. Hayes cross-referenced these memories with forensic data, timelines, and the confessor's hints. The second figure's hand was evident in every carefully orchestrated detail, a silent puppeteer whose movements had shaped the past and now guided the investigation. Digital reconstructions provided a new perspective. Analysts overlaid 1995 aerial imagery with current topography, identifying subtle anomalies, slight depressions in soil, disturbed vegetation, and hidden structures. Hayes traced these reconstructions physically, walking the paths Emily might have taken, imagining the second figure's calculated positioning, anticipating every move. The choreography of abduction, once hidden in shadows, now began to reveal its logic, precision, and terrifying intentionality. A breakthrough occurred when analysts cross-referenced industrial supplier records with fiber evidence. A limited number of facilities matched the material found in recovered items. Vehicle registrations, local employment records, and witness statements were analyzed in tandem, highlighting a potential suspect, someone with access, knowledge, and the ability to remain undetected. Hayes felt a surge of adrenaline. The abstract shadow was starting to take form, emerging from decades of secrecy and manipulation. The confessor's behavior grew increasingly erratic. Micro-expressions, fleeting hesitations, and sudden bursts of agitation revealed psychological stress. Hayes observed carefully, guiding the dialogue to extract details while monitoring inconsistencies. Each subtle cue suggested acknowledgement of the second figure's actions, knowledge of locations, and understanding of the broader plan. The psychological interplay became a key tool, unraveling deception and extracting fragments of truth that had been carefully buried. Community tension escalated. Media coverage was relentless, online speculation rampant, and residents revisited memories with a mix of fear, curiosity, and suspicion. Hayes understood the duality. Pressure could encourage cooperation, yet also distort recollections and create false leads. Navigating the social dynamics of the town became as important as the forensic work itself, each interaction a potential thread toward revelation or misdirection. Emily's family endured waves of emotion, hope and fear intertwined, as discoveries brought clarity and renewed anguish. Hayes relied on their insights, subtle reactions, and recollections to validate evidence and reconstruct sequences. Their courage, persistence, and emotional engagement were integral, grounding the investigation in human stakes and offering context that pure data could never provide. Forensic analysis uncovered further anomalies at the abandoned storage shed. Thermal imaging, soil sampling, and chemical analysis revealed evidence consistent with the confessor's account, yet suggested additional activity beyond what had been previously disclosed. Small impressions in the dust, faint footprints, and residual fibers hinted at another presence, an actor moving with stealth and purpose, leaving the faintest trace of their involvement. Hayes knew these findings pointed directly to the second figure, confirming suspicions long held yet unproven. Witness recollections intensified the picture. Several neighbors recalled minor incidents once dismissed. A door slightly ajar, a car parked unusually, faint sounds at odd hours. When viewed collectively, these fragments suggested observation, timing, and careful orchestration. Hayes traced these patterns meticulously, understanding that the second figure had manipulated ordinary life to conceal extraordinary acts. Each fragment of memory was a coordinate on a map of calculation, patience, and control. The confessor finally provided a critical clue about a hidden compartment within the warehouse complex. Hayes organized a search, using ground-penetrating radar and forensic examination. Inside, they discovered fragments of clothing, remnants of personal items, and subtle chemical traces consistent with prior findings. These discoveries confirmed the abduction's deliberate planning and reinforced the presence of a second actor, whose meticulous care had kept them invisible for decades. Psychological profiling of the second figure intensified. Behavioral analysts examined patterns of observation, manipulation, and concealment. Hayes reviewed every detail: strategic absences, calculated misinformation, and precise timing of movements. The emerging profile suggested a methodical, intelligent, and detached individual, capable of orchestrating events while maintaining the facade of normalcy. Every act, every omission, and every subtle manipulation contributed to the long concealment of Emily's disappearance. The town's collective memory, once passive, became a living archive. Residents revisited past interactions, observed subtle cues in retrospect, and reported minor events previously dismissed. Hayes synthesized these accounts, integrating human memory with forensic and psychological evidence. The investigation became a tapestry of observation, manipulation, and reconstruction, each thread drawing the shadow of the second figure closer to light. Emily's family engaged in renewed interviews, offering insights, validating evidence, and providing emotional context. Each session revealed subtle cues: the hesitation in speech, a glance toward a familiar location, the recollection of minor details that guided the investigation. Hayes recognized the profound importance of human memory, intuition, and emotion in reconstructing events deliberately concealed by decades of silence and deception. By late night, Hayes and his team felt the convergence of evidence. The confessor's statements, forensic analysis, witness testimony, and digital reconstruction aligned toward a tangible target. Every shadowed path, every minor anomaly, every fragment of memory pointed toward a single individual. The second figure, once a theoretical presence, was now emergent. A calculated, deliberate actor whose manipulation had shaped events from behind the scenes. The precinct hummed with quiet urgency. Hayes reviewed timelines, maps, and reconstructions, coordinating teams for simultaneous searches and interviews. Each action was deliberate, a balance of strategy, psychology, and forensic precision. The weight of decades pressed heavily, yet every fragment of evidence, every subtle cue, brought them closer to confronting the second figure. The cold case, dormant for so long, had transformed into a living, pressing pursuit, each discovery illuminating the gaps, the manipulations, and the calculated precision of the past. As the town slept under the shroud of night, Hayes felt the tension mounting. The shadow of 1995 had been disturbed. The invisible hand shaping events for decades was now traceable, analyzable, and confrontable. Every lead, every fragment, every revelation brought the investigation closer to its emotional and procedural climax. Emily's absence, once a void, now had edges, contours, and shadows, partial yet undeniable, shaping the final pursuit of truth, justice, and the long-awaited reckoning that lay just beyond reach. Dawn's first pale light crept across the town like a hesitant witness, illuminating streets that had carried decades of silence. Detective Hayes moved through the precinct with a grim determination, the weight of every clue pressing into his shoulders. The confessor's partial admissions, the painstaking forensic work, and the community's recollections had led them to a single inescapable truth: the second figure, long hidden in plain sight, was real. The town's shadow was tangible, a living presence whose orchestration of Emily's disappearance had remained unchecked for decades. Hayes felt the tight coil of anticipation. Every step now was irreversible, each decision carrying consequences that could shatter more than just lives. They could fracture the community itself. The team convened in the evidence room, where maps, timelines, photographs, and digital reconstructions sprawled across tables in chaotic harmony. Hayes pointed to the latest findings: subtle fiber traces, chemical residues consistent with incapacitation agents, and patterns of observation derived from witness accounts. The second figure had not merely abducted, they had surveilled, calculated, and manipulated events with surgical precision. Hayes traced the potential paths on the map, imagining the actor moving silently, predicting reactions, exploiting trust, and remaining invisible to those closest to Emily. The realization was chilling. Emily had been ensnared in a carefully constructed labyrinth, one whose walls had hidden a human presence for decades. New witness accounts sharpened the picture. Residents remembered fleeting anomalies, cars parked unusually, figures loitering in shadows, subtle inquiries about Emily's habits. Each fragment aligned with forensic data and the confessor's hints, forming a lattice of intention and control. Hayes felt the tension ratchet higher with every connection. The second figure had orchestrated movements, manipulated perception, and anticipated investigation, leaving trails only now discernible after decades of patient observation. Every interaction, every misdirection, had been part of a deliberate plan executed with terrifying foresight. A breakthrough emerged from digital reconstruction. Analysts overlaid aerial images from 1995 with current topography, highlighting subtle depressions, disturbed vegetation, and overlooked structures. Thermal imaging revealed faint anomalies consistent with prior human activity. Hayes visualized the paths Emily might have taken, the second figure's careful placement at vantage points, and the orchestration of concealment. The choreography of abduction, once obscured, began to make sense. Each movement premeditated, each shadow a strategic decision, each lapse in observation a calculated illusion. The confessor, under careful questioning, hinted at the final location where evidence of the second figure's presence might be found. Hayes coordinated a search, deploying forensic teams, thermal scans, and structural assessments. Inside the abandoned warehouse complex, they discovered remnants of clothing, fragments of personal artifacts, and faint chemical traces. Every piece reinforced the narrative of meticulous planning and temporary containment. Hayes felt a cold certainty. The second figure had manipulated not only the physical environment but the memories of witnesses, ensuring that even the keenest observer might overlook the deliberate signs of their orchestration. Psychological profiling offered critical insight. Analysts studied behavioral patterns, microexpressions, and inconsistencies, building a profile of intelligence, patience, and emotional detachment. Hayes reviewed every detail: strategic absences, subtle manipulations, and calculated timing. The second figure was methodical, calculating, and capable of sustained deception, a predator who had mastered both the physical and psychological dimensions of control. The town, the family, and the investigators themselves had been unwitting participants in a narrative constructed with care, and only now were the threads converging toward revelation. Community tension escalated to near fever pitch. Media coverage intensified, residents revisited past interactions, and online speculation surged. Hayes understood the dual nature of this attention. It encouraged witnesses to come forward, yet also threatened to distort memories, create false leads, and heighten suspicion. Navigating the town's collective consciousness became as critical as analyzing fiber strands, chemical residues, and forensic anomalies. Every whispered recollection and subtle observation contributed to the unfolding confrontation. Emily's family confronted waves of emotion: hope, dread, anger, and cautious optimism. Each new discovery offered clarity tinged with grief. Hayes relied on their recollections, interpretations, and emotional responses to guide the investigation, understanding that their insights provided context no physical evidence could fully capture. Each conversation, pause, and glance offered subtle confirmation or contradiction, shaping the approach to the final pursuit of the second figure. Then came the moment Hayes had anticipated yet dreaded. A lead from a former employee at one of the industrial sites, cross-referenced with fiber and vehicle records, pointed directly to a specific individual. Surveillance confirmed their recent presence in a location consistent with the confessor's hints. Hayes coordinated a tactical approach with his team, every precaution taken to avoid alerting the suspect, yet aware that discovery might trigger unpredictable behavior. The air in the precinct and the surrounding town vibrated with tension, the culmination of decades-long investigation poised on the brink of confrontation. The second figure was finally located. Hayes observed from a concealed position as the individual moved deliberately, almost casually, through the abandoned site. Despite years of absence, the control, precision, and deliberate awareness were unmistakable. Every gesture, every scan of the environment confirmed the profile: intelligent, calculating and entirely aware of the stakes. Hayes felt the adrenaline spike. Years of reconstruction, forensic diligence, and psychological profiling were about to meet the living embodiment of the case. Confrontation was imminent. Hayes, accompanied by a tactical team, approached with measured steps, voices calm but authoritative. The suspect reacted instantly, awareness sharpening into calculation, evaluating, predicting, maneuvering. Every word, every motion was loaded with tension. Hayes pressed questions carefully, leveraging the confessor's hints and evidence accumulated over decades. The second figure responded with a blend of composure and veiled agitation, revealing fragments of knowledge, hints of guilt, and glimpses of the psychological mechanics that had orchestrated Emily's disappearance. As the dialogue unfolded, the truth began to surface. Subtle admissions, corroborated by forensic evidence and reconstructed timelines, revealed a chilling orchestration spanning months before the disappearance. Each manipulation, every concealment, and every shadowed observation became apparent. The second figure's meticulous planning, patience, and psychological acuity were undeniable.